Hello and welcome to another Finax podcast. My name is Tamara Vrhovec Sekáč and I am an international business expansion manager. And my guest today is my colleague Shimon. Shimon, hi. He's a financial analyst in Finax.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here.
Another podcast. Today, we are going to talk about a very important topic, financial freedom. I think Shimon might tell us 2 or 3 words about Finax before we start.
Yes, before we move on to the financial freedom topic everyone is waiting for, to sort of introduce this project and introduce this podcast series. We are Finax. We are originally Slovak, but now expanding abroad robo-advisory platform. And a big part of our mission is to record podcasts and sort of educate clients about what we think the correct approach to personal finances is, and also to create a platform where people speak more openly and aren't afraid to speak up about things related to money, because we think it is often a sort of a taboo in societies, and it shouldn't be. It's an important part of our lives that we shouldn't be afraid to openly speak about. So we record these podcasts where we talk about topics that matter to inspire you to also talk about them more openly with people around you. So we hope that you find today's topic interesting.
We have recorded hundreds of webinars and podcasts in countries that we are present in so far. So you can find our channels on YouTube. Finax International, Finax Croatia, Finax Poland, Finax Slovakia, and you will see that we really
are active in the educational sphere.
Very active, and we really try to explain and educate people on topics of personal finance and investing. So today we are going to talk about financial freedom, as we mentioned earlier, a topic that we both like very much. And we thought it would be an interesting topic to start with. It's just the beginning of a new year, and a lot of people are setting their goals. So financial freedom is definitely a very, very important goal one can set for their lives. And maybe it sounds unachievable, even in the long run. But today we are here to explain you that it doesn't have to be like this. Financial freedom is very much achievable, and we are going to talk about the fact that financial freedom might be a different thing for every individual. So Shimon, maybe you can start with telling us more about the FIRE movement, or Financial Independence Retire Early movement, and when it started, just a few sentences regarding the actual movement. Yes.
Yeah. Just some facts before we get to the philosophy for the beginning. Essentially, the idea of financial freedom is often in the circles of personal finance associated with the FIRE movement, which, as Tamara said, stands for Financial Independence Retire Early, which I would say started to get widely popularized by these books that are here behind us. One of them is Your Money or Your Life by Vicky Robin and Joe Dominguez. Another is Playing with Fire. And more books were written on the topic. I think the basic idea of these books is that despite our wealth and our income growing over our life, we often give up more and more time and control over our time to get material possessions, which results in us being unhappy. So basically, the basic idea standing in the center of the FIRE movement is, when you're younger or in your younger years, create financial habits that allow you to have an unusually large savings rate. So we're usually not just talking about the usually recommended 10, 15, 20% to save for retirement after the age of 65 or 60 usually, but we're talking about slightly higher numbers, about gradually as your income grows, maybe getting to 30, maybe to 40% of savings rates. And they use it to accumulate enough wealth so that they can use their pool of savings to later draw income from them, becoming independent from their employer. That is the retire early and independence thing in the name of the FIRE movement. So the idea is to get a large pool of savings, draw income from them for a couple of decades, being able to stop work. And once you achieve that, work becomes choice rather than a necessity, which results into much more freedom to devote time to doing things that bring you the most happiness.
Yes, I would add here that definitely there are many people who don't like to stop working, right? So it's all about having a choice in the long run. But also, I think an important thing to mention here is the fact that definitely a part of saving and investing for a better future and achieving FIRE is starting early, because as we know, compound interest works for you. And even though you start with rather smaller amounts at the beginning, maybe while you're a student and you don't have as much, to put on a side and to invest, eventually compound interest is what helps you in the long run. We are going to talk about things here, things like having healthy habits, financial habits, and basically creating some kind of a plan where you can be or where you want to be. We were talking in another podcast how important financial goals are, or setting up any goals in life. Financial goals are definitely one of the important goals in life that you can set. And often when we are young, we don't understand how important the long-term financial goals are. But later on, when we realize, we find that we maybe lack some time and we wish we had started earlier. So whoever is listening and watching today and is maybe still a student or has just started on the first job and maybe doesn't earn as much as they think they would need to earn in order to invest, we know that nowadays you can invest even starting with some 10 euros and get some, ETFs. So, for example, through some robo-advisor like us. What I'm trying to say is pretty simple nowadays. There is not much knowledge that you have to have about investing, and you don't have to spend a lot of time learning about investing or simply following different news and, basically spending a lot of your time on investing. You just invest and you forget about it. Passive investing, easy way to do it. And once you create a habit to put something on the side, eventually, even when you start earning more, it's not going to be so difficult to start putting more on the side.
And I think this is also present in most works and blogs and books about FIRE, right? They often say that this is a lifelong, long-term process and that there are no shortcuts. So when you're saying about creating a large portfolio of savings from which you can draw income for a long time, most of the people who are members and followers of FIRE won't be talking about shortcuts. It won't be about picking stocks. It won't be about trading cryptocurrencies.
Yes, it's not about speculation. It's really about investing. And I think many people don't know the difference about it, because everything is suddenly in this huge pool of investing. And there are really big differences between, speculations and investing. So whenever there is a offer that sounds too attractive, it probably means that you should run away from it.
And that's what most FIRE thinkers would tell you, right? It wouldn't be about ultra complicated, sophisticated investment strategy. You just get yourself a low-cost index portfolio following indices of the world economy. And what you focus on is avoiding sort of lifestyle inflation. We'll be talking about this later. And putting
consistency.
Exactly. And putting a large enough proportion of your income into that index portfolio for a long, long time, so that eventually the progress of global economy can help you appreciate the savings and achieve your goals sooner.
Yes, like Warren Buffett, for example.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
Yes. So I wanted to talk here about the individual perception of, financial freedom and what it means for different people. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, FIRE as a movement, having this retire early in its name, sometimes stops people from even trying because they believe they cannot achieve it, or they are too old to even start, or different things, or they just think it would be too harsh or too restrictive to their lifestyle or whatever. There are a few things that we have to talk about. Definitely, when you are setting up a goal, a long-term goal like financial freedom, it means that you need to basically set up some kind of a lifestyle which will allow you to put on the side a certain amount of money. As you said, hopefully increasing amounts as your salary grows, your income grows. What that means is that you are basically going to do something for a very long time. And in order to be successful in doing it for a long time, it means that that commitment has to be sustainable.
Exactly. You cannot suffer through the process,
Yes.
right? If you only eat beans from a
and
can.
bread
Yeah,
for
exactly.
2 years, I bet you are not going to
Exactly.
succeed.
How are you going to preserve that lifestyle for often decades, right?
Yes,
it's not a
first of
fast
all, your
process.
health would deteriorate. And
Yeah.
I don't think you would achieve retirement age anyways.
Exactly.
But what we are trying to say is that definitely, you can look at your lifestyle and see what you can live without, what is maybe not necessary, what doesn't really make you as happy as you thought, and things like that. Often when we go to our garage, we can see that we cannot park a car inside because
There are too many in.
too many things inside which we basically never pull out or we never use.
Exactly.
So this is one of the places where you can start, so you go to your garage and you start selling off things that are there.
I think this is a beautiful illustration because often people think that achieving FIRE needs not enjoying life, but at least to me, the philosophy of financial independence is rather about avoiding lifestyle inflation than about restricting ourselves all the time too much. What I mean by this is that oftentimes when you ask people, let's say the generation of my parents or so someone who already has a significant portion of their career behind themselves, and you ask them what the happiest times of their life were, they will usually say, oh, the student years, or oh, the early 20s when we got married and we didn't have anything, but we were so happy. And they often feel much happier about their lives at this point, the younger years, compared to 40s, 50s. And isn't it strange? Because in 40s and 50s, their incomes are 4 times of what they were earning when they had part-time jobs as students. And I think this illustrates that oftentimes the sense of being free to spend time with people you love, oftentimes the sense of being free and having control over your time brings much more happiness than material possessions.
Less responsibilities.
Exactly. But what often happens throughout our life is that we create, and that is what, or let's say we have some sort of lifestyle in our 20s, but then as our income grows, we exchange more and more of our time and stress for, or let's say feelings of no stress for material possessions. So once we have a
so I think generally, if you ask somebody about earning more money, the moment you say it, they see something material that they could exchange.
Exactly. We see the vacation, right?
Yeah, or something,
we see the large car,
or a new car, or
exactly,
something that. Okay, some of the things are necessities. Some of the things we need to have, but then it comes to what car can bring you from A to B Do you need to have 2 cars or one is enough? What
Exactly.
kind of house do you need to have? Does it need to have 300 square meters, or you could maybe do with 100 square meters, and this kind of thing. So sorry that I just wanted to say, usually when people talk about bonuses or increased salaries or whatever, they immediately think how they're going to exchange that money for something material, rather than what we are trying to say, how about creating yourself a safe pathway to financial freedom? Why? Because for me personally, I think that's an ultimate freedom. Financial independence is an ultimate freedom, which gives you a complete choice of what you're going to do, when you're going to do, and whether you will retire early or you are going to, I don't know, travel for 2 or 3 years and then open up your business. Basically, it gives you an opportunity to do whatever you like to do.
Exactly. That's essentially what I wanted to eventually move on, right?
Yes.
We said that oftentimes to us, achieving financial freedom is more about in your 20s, setting a modest, where you don't buy things that you don't really need, such as a large second car with a large payment, but you set up a modest lifestyle you're satisfied with. So in this lifestyle, you spend time with people you like, you work a job that you like, you live in a place which you like, right? And then avoiding making these small choices of buying more and more with your incremental income. So when our income grows, we often...
Lifestyle inflation.
Exactly. That's lifestyle inflation. We don't go on a vacation, to go hiking in our own country, but now we go to a Turkish resort. We aren't satisfied with our
Maybe
some
Seychelles or something, not Turkey.
Okay. Oh, maybe even more. Depends on how successful you are in your career.
5-star.
Yeah. You buy, instead of an older version of a Samsung phone, now you buy a new iPhone, and you also buy it for other members of your family because now you feel that you can afford it. But then your lifestyle gets more and more expensive, right? You buy a larger car, which you are convinced that your neighbors will admire, right? That's embedded in our culture. But in doing so, you exchange more and more of your time for preserving this lifestyle. You have to work more stressful positions. You have to work longer hours. And that is when you don't have time, and we think that is bad. And so sort of keeping your, let's say, 20s lifestyle and investing the increases in your income into your savings will allow you more freedom. And sort of that's what I wanted to sort of transition to, is what even is financial freedom? What are the various uses we can, why is having a large pool of money beneficial? What does financial freedom mean to you?
Yes, I wanted to, as you were talking, I was thinking basically how, as grown-ups, we tend to complicate everything. But if you look at our children, you see that things in life are pretty simple. I was telling you yesterday about some of the, examples, but one more that just, I was just thinking about now is when there's Christmas and you shower your kid with so many presents, definitely they are happy. They are happy that few moments when they open, when they play with one, and then there is another one, and then there is another one, and maybe for a couple of days, these toys or these new things that they have received, they get their attention, but it's very, very short term.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that every parent out there knows that if you ask your child what is the most valuable thing that you can give them, is your time. And this is, I think, where everything begins. Once you come to a point in your life where you realize that you're not willing to sacrifice time with your family, time with your loved ones, time with your children when they are small, because they grow up far too fast. When you realize that you don't want to work 12 hours, instead you want to go out in the nature, on a bike, with your friends, simply
read more books.
Time, as we say, time is money. What does it mean? We often think, yes, we require to spend time to earn money, but it works also the other way, right? So when we spend money, we again need to spend more time to earn that money again. So, and one thing that is limited in our lives is time. We cannot buy it.
Exactly.
So we cannot exchange basically money for that in the long run. Once we are 70, we cannot buy extra 50 years because it just doesn't work, unfortunately. So it is very wise to start thinking about it earlier on. I was telling Shimon when we were talking about examples in everyday lives, and I was telling him how I taught my son about the value of money. He is very little. He's just going to turn 6 now. But when he asked me this question, he was about 3. And he liked one car, and he asked me to buy.
A good one.
Yes, very good one. Well, he saw mommy was driving
Tempting.
it before, yes, because mommy was doing some sports driving on the side. And he said, mommy, what if you would buy this car? And I said, well, I probably could buy that car, but that would mean that mommy and daddy would need to spend more time working. And what would that mean? That they cannot spend as much time with you. And I can tell you that immediate reaction was like, we don't need the car. Just,
exactly.
They only want their parents. They want their time. They want their attention. And this is, I think, what we need to value in the long run. Nowadays, with all this consumerism and with all the advertising and, everyone shouting at us that we need this and that and we need another phone and we need this, that, it's very easy to forget what is the most important, essentially, right? And that is health and time.
Exactly. And just try to think about it via a simple example. Oftentimes when we tell people, no, you don't need a second car, or let's be even bolder, right? Oftentimes, if you live in a city, you don't even need a car, right? And that tends to infuriate people. But transport is the basic necessity. Like we don't have buses and trams. And of course, sometimes you need at least one car. But try to think about it this way. It's tempting to think about things from the short run perspective. So feeling the obligation to take your family to a luxurious vacation in winter and summer, or buying a second car so that both you and your partner have more transport freedom to move around. But just imagine giving up on these things, and sometimes giving up just on a couple of major expenses allows you to invest and save much larger pools of money each year. Do that for 15 years and imagine how much more in your savings portfolio you have from which now you can draw additional income. And now just imagine you sacrificed the second car and exchange vacations which are more exotic for some that are more local, some hiking adventures, going to cottages for us in Slovakia, let's say, or in Central Europe, but depends on where you live. Just imagine you exchange these things for having a large pool of money that once you have kids or once your kids are starting to grow up, allow one of you with your partner to agree on taking up a part-time job and now working only half the hours that you were required to work, because there can be a supplementary income drawn from your pool of savings. You can now afford it because you didn't take this tempting option to have extra consumption when you were younger, in the first 15 or 20 years of your life, of your working life, right? And just imagine the amount of joy and nice moments this can bring to you, and the stress it can relieve, and the quality of upbringing you can give to your kids. And now for many people, they would be like, they would say that this is a trade-off that is definitely worth it. Just having one car and taking the bus or the tram to work during some days of your life, or driving together, and dropping off the other person and exchanging vacations at sea or abroad for hiking, can oftentimes mean, with compounding, with having these habits for decades, that can bring you such significant things, or as significant things as being able to take part-time jobs when you want to spend more time with your kids, because the time with them cannot be returned to you. And in my view, this is a trade-off that is definitely worth it.
Yes,
And
I
definitely
think
not for
everyone
everybody,
should basically, start looking at what is really important for them and what is not so important for them. So
Exactly.
while for somebody these vacations can be really, places where they kind of have family together and they're going to have memories forever and they don't want to give up on that, probably there are going to be some other areas where they can just make some cuts. So basically we are not trying to tell you what to do, or
Exactly.
we are just trying to tell you that there is a large amount of things where you can probably save on and use it as an investment for a better future. So
I think this is a very, very important idea. What we usually recommend to our clients in Slovakia or Croatia is to have this list of priorities. So each year, when it's Christmas, you can sit down, either yourself or with your partner or with your kids, and come up with a list of top 10 things that bring you happiness in your life. And then you should, let's say, count your expenses per category and see whether you've spent most money on these things that actually bring you happiness. It's not a problem to have traveling on top of the priority list. Many of my friends do, and I think you should spend a bulk of your expenses on traveling if that is what brings you the feeling that your life is worth living. However, what is problem is that often the culture of consumerism and comparing ourselves to others forces us to spend significant amounts of our lifetime income on things that don't really bring happiness to us. So, for example, I think that in Slovakia, it's a cultural belief that as soon as you graduate from university or as soon as you start working, you should get a leasing for your first car as soon as possible, not thinking whether you actually need it, just because everyone else does it. And similar with vacations, right? You often feel that you need to take your family to the sea because your neighbor did that, rather than actually sitting down with the kids and with the family and with yourself and asking, is this destination what we want to do? Or is there a different adventure that might cost much less that brings us more quality time together?
I think looking at Europe, there will be obviously different standards and different cultural backgrounds.
Exactly.
For example, in Sweden, probably people have generally higher incomes than they have in, I don't know, Bulgaria, right? But I want to say that, for example, in Sweden, you don't have this feeling that people are constantly competing what kind of car they have in front of parked in front of their house or something like this. While generally in the poorer countries, it tends to be the thing that I'm generalizing, which is not so good often, but I'm just trying to paint the picture. Often we are trying to satisfy some
show off.
Yes, right? I didn't know how to put it nicely. But for example, we are buying a better car just
to impress others,
to impress our neighbor, because he
care.
has a good car. So now we also have to have a good car. So it's or buying an overly expensive apartment or a house. That's what I'm saying. There's only as much square meters that you're going to use eventually. Also, especially if you're spending most of your time outside in the nature or doing sports or working. I'm not sure, how much use you're going to have of the huge house that requires large, bills and everything else at the end of the day. So
I love saying in the world of personal finance books by Morgan Housel, which is an amazing personal finance author. I definitely recommend his work. He says, he puts it in a way that wealth is what you don't see. And wealth is what brings you freedom to do whatever you want because you have a lot of money to draw income, but you cannot show off with your investment account because no one cares, right? It's what you don't see, and it's the things that you could show off with that you sacrificed to get the get the money there, right? So that is what makes it difficult, because you can't compete with others and show off and compare yourself to others when you focus on building wealth that it's supposed to grant you freedom as one of your life priorities. But that is why it's so important. And that is why personal finance is much more about your behavior and your ability to control your ego than about being a good mathematician or knowing the most about companies and global news.
We often mention that a lot of millionaires are people who wear random clothing, and you wouldn't be able to tell that they are millionaires.
Drive used cars.
Yes. What I'm trying to say is that you just need to be happy with yourself. You don't need to
seek validation from the
from
admiration
the
of others.
And that this is generally what nowadays seems to be the case, unfortunately, especially in younger generations. They need to, they see all these fake social media posts, everyone has a private jet and drives a Ferrari and everything.
Yeah, and goes to luxurious hotels in Dubai.
Yes. And it kind of creates a lot of pressure and stress and wrong values at the end of the day. So it is very simple, as I said earlier on. Let's just try to go back in time and look at the things as we did when we were children.
Or students.
Yes.
Or students, but, early 20s.
Without any filters or anything. Children are so direct, they are so innocent, and they very quickly show you what makes them happy and what doesn't make them happy. So I think this is more of a thing that once you realize what makes you happy and what are your values, you will be able to be satisfied with yourself and with your life and with the lifestyle that you're leading. And when you have a goal, I think eventually it is easier to reach that goal. But I wanted to mention one more thing on this path to financial freedom. Like with everything else in life, it's also very important what kind of surroundings we have, right? So from friends to family to some generational patterns or beliefs that are passed on us, it is also very important what kind of partner we pick. And especially when it comes to finances, often we don't think about it. We just want them to be good looking, well educated, blah, blah,
and
blah.
And we avoid talking about money.
Yes, right? Yes. But this is also a very important topic, and definitely finances are a topic which cause most of the divorces and most of family problems. So it is a topic that needs to be talked about. You need to make sure that the person that is traveling on this life journey next to you is sharing the same values, also financial values, which means if you want to minimalize your lifestyle and you realize that what makes you happy is spending a lot of time in nature, biking, hiking, whatever, and this other person has a little bit different wishes, let's put it this way, it's not going to be sustainable for a long time, right? So it is very important to talk about these kind of things and find out how the other person breathes on this topic, I would say rather early on in your partnership.
Exactly. And I would just add one final thought for me.
Yes.
I don't think this is just about partners, because many people choose not to have a partner today. Yes. And that is, I think that is perfectly fine. I think that actually ties into all the ideas that we were talking here, that you shouldn't seek marriage just because it's a cultural norm,
yes,
but do what you like.
That's why I said friends, family,
exactly.
Surroundings,
also,
everything that
surround yourself with people who understand your lifestyle and think the same. And that is why I wanted to have this as a concluding thought. That is why we are doing these podcasts, right? To inspire people to have similar conversations as the two of us had here about money, about what are your priorities, about whether your expenses reflect your priorities, to sort of look at the budget and talk about these topics more, because sadly we often associate money with stress. We associate money with, looking greedy in front of our friends. And we think that it doesn't have to be that way. We should talk about this topic. We should essentially be on board and on the same boat when it comes to these topics. So if you take one thing from this podcast, is to talk about these topics with the people you love more.
Yes, I hope that this podcast will at least motivate you to think about financial independence and what it would mean for you, what it would bring to you. And as I said, I believe that achieving it and even enjoying the path to it, which gives you these opportunities to basically, from personal experience, take 2.5 years off because you want to have a child, because you will give a birth, and because you will start a completely different career. That's a choice that you can make when you are financially well off enough to make such kind of decisions. So I hope we motivated you to think a little bit on this topic and to see what you can do in your personal finances to basically have a better and financially safer future.
What a beautiful thought to conclude the podcast with, right?
Thank you for being us, and hope to see you next time.
Yeah, thank you for joining us today. If you want to listen to us cover other interesting topics from personal finance and investing, hit the subscribe button, and we will be looking forward to being with you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.